What's up everyone, welcome to today's video, welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So the conversation surrounding Hogwarts Legacy's last gen delay is still going on, and on Twitter there are a lot of people giving their opinions, and you know, that's one thing about opinions, everybody's got one. But I do want to argue against one opinion that I got to see because I thought this was quite peculiar. Now, someone on Twitter, I'm going to leave unnamed, mentioned something along the lines of Hogwarts Legacy should have just been delayed because for some reason those who have access to the version don't need to play it until everybody gets their hands on the game. Now, this is a little bit interesting, or I would say somewhat absurd, because in the industry, there are exclusives to games that have nothing to even do with technical difficulties that are still kept away from specific audiences. We have a game like Forspoken coming out in January that's going to remain a 2-year timed exclusive to the PlayStation 5 on the console side. We also have other games like Final Fantasy that probably will never make their way to other platforms, or even some exclusive games that remain on the consoles that maybe say PC will never play. You even have some other games that remain on things like the Switch. And if you're talking about maybe the Switch version getting delayed all the way down to June, I mean, aren't there games on the Switch that would never make their way to other consoles or other platforms? So when you actually ask and answer these questions, you start to see that that particular argument falls apart. Now, I do not want to diminish this argument without giving any good background information or providing a little bit of value to the conversation. Now, the first thing that you got to pay very close attention to is these last gen consoles have already passed their shelf life. There's no need for them to still be in the conversation for the most part. I think titles being capable of being run by them is good and fine and well, but once a developer decides they want to go into a different layer of ambition, they need to plan accordingly from ground up as to exactly what it is that their game is going to look like. Now, I have to say this, as much as Hogwarts Legacy fans pretty much appreciate their developers, I think there is something to still be said here about potential of poor planning on their part. And I say this because this is very important that we actually go in and, talk about. Now, it could be that it wasn't, poor planning. I don't want to throw out such an accusation that I then sound stupid and outlandish. Let me take that back. And let me say potentially maybe not seeing the circumstances changing the way that it did mid-development. Yeah, I think that sounds much better because, I wasn't in there in the studio, so I shouldn't say that. Forgive me, because if you think about when this game probably got into the development and green light phase, I don't think anybody could have envisioned the possibility of these current gen consoles. And imagine being a game designer and a game developer, and as you're developing your video game for these ancient hardware, because that's kind of the nickname I'll give the PlayStation 4 at this point, and then somebody comes in and says, hey man, here's a mid-range gaming PC with all these capabilities, you'd be happy, because what that means now is a lot of things that you've envisioned, you're now capable of actually getting them realized in the video game. So yes, those circumstances changing mid-game after you've announced that your game is going to be available on the PlayStation 4 has now committed you to a very interesting place. And I'm sure because Warner Brothers understood and saw the backlash that Gotham Knights pretty much faced from canceling its own PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions, it does not want to repeat the same mistake by reneging on their promise. So this is kind of the cost right now because the game is ready. There's no need for them to hold on to everybody else's copy for another, 3, 4, 5 months in some cases. April is 5 months from February, isn't it? June, sorry. June is 5 months away from February, forgive me. But when you think about it, you have to go ahead and consider that these are some of what I think are the, difficulties and the sacrifices that need to be considered when a lot of these video games are being developed. And again, thinking about the mid-generation crises having been some of the biggest challenges. Now, we also have to talk about the mid-generation switch in development crises that have also hit a lot of these developers. You see, at first, when the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S were first made available, The biggest challenge was getting your hands on one. Now, it's no longer the case. If you want a Series S, you can get a Series S very fast. There's no problem with that. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that in case there's somebody who may not want to wait, or somebody who says, I only got a Switch. I don't see myself going for a $500 console. The Series S might give you an entry into being able to play Hogwarts Legacy on the console version, maybe enjoying a little bit more in terms of performance, visual quality, and so on and so forth. But like I said, a different conversation. And so this already had, in a sense, created some kind of a lag in the way that these consoles were ubiquitous, or at least sent to, different corners of the market for people to get their hands on. Now, on the other hand, the consoles are available, but you can already see that for most people, they may have decided to prioritize their dollars on different things when they had the dollars and the means and the opportunity, the consoles were not in front of them. So these circumstances changing all over the place are still causing some stares. And I would say, and I would dare to say, that if there's anyone who's coming up with a video game right now, or was coming up with a video game a while ago that they hadn't announced, your best bet will probably be to make sure that you are aware as to what limitations you would face if you choose to play or to release your game for players to play on the past gen of systems. I'm not saying they should scrap them all together. I mean, there are machines that are still viable. They allow for sales. If you can still sell a few million copies on the PS4 and the Xbox One, it is worth developing for those platforms. There's no doubt about that. I've seen some people pretty much go ahead and say maybe we just need to move on from these past generations. I can partly agree with that to an extent, but ideally, you just have to understand that when there are about 100 million PlayStation 4s out there in the wild, and possibly maybe 10 to 15 million of them can offer you a huge install base, and then you look at even the Xbox side, it is a no-brainer that you at least try your best to prioritize exactly what it is that you can do to get your game on these platforms. But I do not agree that Hogwarts Legacy should have been delayed again. I think the delays are already enough, and I think the developers are taking the really smart middle ground approach and trying to make sure that this game lands in the best way possible. But that's it for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Do you think it should have been delayed? Do you think that the developers are taking the right step in making sure that they get the, versions that are already out there? I'll be happy to, respond in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.